Now, President Biden says Washington is discussing with Israel the possibility of Israeli strikes on Iran's oil infrastructure in response to Tehran's unprecedented missile attack this week. Now, it comes after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Tehran would pay a heavy price for its actions. Joe Biden's comments ended up sparking a surge in the price of crude oil, up by 5% at one point. Faisal Islam is here to explain a little bit more.
Thanks, Clive. In the aftermath of Iran's ballistic missile attack on Israel, and as we wait for news on Israel's response, there's already been a reaction in the world's oil market. The price of a barrel of crude oil shot up on international markets today. It was up 5% today, and that means since the attacks, it's up 10% to over $77 a barrel on the Brent crude measure. This is still down on the year because of global economic concerns, but the spike up today occurred immediately after President Biden added to suggestions that Israel would target Iran's oil facilities.
Would you support Israel striking Iran's oil facilities, sir?
We're in discussion with that. I think that would be a little... Anyway.
Now, the oil markets reacted to that. Iran is the seventh biggest oil exporter in the world. Most of its exports go to China. The Israelis could choose to target the Iranian government's funding by hitting its oil export facilities on Karg Island or refineries crucial for making domestic petrol supplies. Some reported petrol queues already in Iran. These could disrupt, but not necessarily upend, global energy markets. If that happens, there's enough of surplus oil production in Saudi Arabia and the UAE to make up the difference. But would they? And then the big question, in turn, is what would be Tehran's response to any Israeli action? Much attention will then focus here on the Straits of Hormuz, 28 miles wide at its narrowest point between Iran and Oman. If Iran was to try to block it, then 20 million barrels per day, or a fifth of the world's oil production, not just Iran's, but every country in the Gulf, would not be able to transit their crude oil tankers. And these days it isn't just oil. The world's dependence on Russian gas has been replaced by shipments of liquefied gas, mainly from Qatar, also needing to transit that strait. So that's the nightmare scenario for energy prices and could be passed on in petrol and domestic energy costs. And all this at the moment when the world and households were emerging from that last energy shock. There's nothing certain about this, but with the US president now adding to the jitters, energy markets are now responding to heightened risks that could affect us all. Clive.
Faisal, thank you. Faisal Islam, our economics editor there.